Hello and welcome to my world. I am, of course, Fred Kaz, and as you know, 7 nights a week I stream live over on Twitch playing a variety of video games. The link to my Twitch channel can be found in the description below. Now, this week, as you can tell, not just by the title of this video, but also by the footage that's right up there, one of the games we featured this week and that we put a lot of time in on, one stream dedicated that it was the original Doom. Uh, Doom, of course, was released in the early 90s from id Software in the format that it was called shareware. You got the first episode for free via either something from PC Gamer Monthly or some other type of format, and you had to pay for the rest of the game. It's a business practice that is coincidentally kind of still favored by a lot of video game publishers today. Except these days it's called downloadable content. And we all know a game that kind of was like that, where you paid for the majority of the game and still had to pay more for the actual ending. And of course, I'm talking about Azura's Wrath. Granted, that situation is a bit old, but still, I love the point. Who doesn't love the poke fun at Capcom these days? Still, Doom is a game that one of the greatest games of all time. It was a trendsetter. It was ahead of its time, but I don't think it gets quite all the credit it deserves in certain areas. And I know that's gonna make people wonder why. It's like the music, the gameplay, the action. It is like Doom was the controversy that Doom had. Was like, yes, all that is true. But when you think about modern games where a lot of things is based around a team mechanic, and there is something that, particularly in first person shooters, that people do not appreciate as much. And that is the fact of situational awareness, being aware of your surroundings, listening for things that are around you. Now, as many of you know, I play Overwatch every Sunday, but and if you ever joined me on one of my Sunday streams, you notice, with the exception of when I'm playing with people that I know, I don't use team chat. Primarily because I don't want to be yelled at by some kid from South Korea, uh, but it's because I like to be aware of my surroundings in terms of what game I'm playing and trying to listen for the enemy. When you got a game like Overwatch, where you have so many distinctive sounds for how a character walks and how and the weapons that they use, you may not have the time or to be able to tab to see what the other team has as part of their composition. So you are listening for certain sounds, certain indicators that not only tells you who or what's on the other team, but be what to anticipate is the word I'm looking for. And playing Doom last night, I found myself relying a lot on audio indication of enemy placement, enemy appearances, and things of that nature. Uh, yes, everyone knows that when you're walking around Doom, when there's enemies in a general area, you hear their snarls, their grunts, their growls, etc. And for the most part, you can try to avoid enemies. Although this is Doom, who's going to try to avoid enemies? But if you listen carefully, and not only you, those same sounds, those same snarls, grunts, and growls will give you a first sign indicator of where they are positioned, where they are on the map. And that amazed me. And actually listening for the enemies realizing where they were made this game so much easier than I felt it ever actually was when I was much younger. Because normally back in the 90s when I was playing this, I would hit that IDDQD normally by map 5 of episode 1 and just leave it on the rest of the way. Last night I didn't feel I didn't need to turn it on until pretty much endgame of the individual episodes, which is a strong indicator of how important the sound was and how ahead of time and how much thought and consideration the uh the developers put into it. And again, I don't think Doom gets the credit it deserves in terms of teaching a player's situational awareness just from audio cues. So still, with that said, Doom as a game, in terms of it being a fun and fluid and just a romp to play through, that goes without saying. It is a bit jarring when you play so many modern games or games that came out within the past uh 10 years, 10 to 15 years, where you can look up and down and you can jump. It's like when you don't have that ability to jump, you don't have that ability to actually aim up, aim down, you start or peek around corners and so forth. You start like Doom is like you can easily get disoriented without having all the stuff that you are so accustomed to having as movement options or ways to be to to give yourself a tactical advantage. Now, of course, there is probably a logical explanation as to why the Doom guy can't jump. He's carrying around about seven different weapons that, depending on if you're really good at finding everything, let's see, your weapons he's lugging around: a chainsaw, a pistol, a shotgun, a chain gun, a rocket launcher, a plasma gun, and of course, one big fucking gun. It's not a Bioforce gun. It's a big fucking gun, the BFG 9000. So that's why he can't jump. He's lugging around all this stuff, and he can't turn his head up or down because his helmet basically blocked his head in place. He can look from side to side, but even then, you're realizing he's turning the whole body, and that his head is basically locked in place when you really think about it. So there is some actual, because if you look at the Doom armor, when you come across the corpses of the other Space Marines who at the base, you start realizing that helmet is basically meant to lock the head in one position. So it's like it's to look ahead, but silly, silly in-game lore consideration as to why you can't jump and you can't look up and down. Now I will admit that during last night's stream, the difficulty spike, and I think I mentioned it earlier. It's like didn't really need to turn on the IDDQD, the God mode, until basically real late towards the end game of each individual episode. And when you realize when you're running through the majority of the game, and at least in my case, primarily just you felt like you just have to use the shotgun to get through everything. Like, okay, how come these bosses require so much more damage? And it's just blew my mind at how difficult those bosses actually were just to take down, as opposed to everything else where I basically only needed one weapon. And that's how bosses are supposed to be for the most part. Just pump your firepower into them. Uh, but again, it's still a lot of fun. The the thrill of actually taking down the big bosses at the end of each episode, even with God mode on, still you still get that pump and you get pumped and excited and getting through it. But I kind of feel Doom's strength and its legacy should be the situational awareness when it comes to just getting through the game, in a general sense. So, with that said, we'll wrap up my rant, my praise of Doom. Here, of course, I hope you join me over my on my Twitch channel. Again, I stream 7 nights a week. But if you're just following me here on YouTube, I will port some of the streams over to YouTube so that you can check out how things happen live over on Twitch. So hit your subscribe button here, turn on the bell notification for when I upload new content, and tighten your friendship bracelets, watch your hang down, and we'll talk to you next time. Have a good one, folks.